Hi folks, so after last week, and it was dark, wasn't it? It was so dark. I wanted to move on to talk about the influence of these deviant elites, these absolute perverts, and how that manifests itself in their corporate power. So today's video is about the illusion of competition, and also it's a bit of a kind of doomsday message. Hopefully not. It's more of a warning about how we manage the AI revolution. So let's get into it. So you think that you're choosing between Apple or Google, Samsung or iPhone, Amazon or Microsoft, Meta or TikTok, or Coke or Pepsi. But what if I told you the same shareholders are profiting no matter which one of those wins? So now those same ownership structures are building the most powerful technology humanity has ever created in AI. And this isn't a conspiracy theory, this is reality. And it's called common ownership. So when you understand it, you'll never see competition the same way again. So we're told capitalism works because companies compete. Competition lowers prices, it raises wages, it drives innovation. So that's the theory, and that's what we've been living with, particularly over the last 40 or so years since the Thatcher regime. But here's the structural reality. The three largest asset managers in the world, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, they collectively manage over $20 trillion worth of assets. So they're not niche investors, they're the largest shareholders in companies such as Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, and often they're top shareholders in all of them at the same time. So different brands, different CEOs, different dominant shareholders, and this is all legal and it's totally normalized. It's just the way things are in 2026. But I hope you are starting to see how this can inhibit a productive economy and society. Let's carry on. So, common ownership, it means the same institutional investors hold large stakes in competing firms, usually within the same industry, so in airlines, banks, pharmaceuticals, big tech. So instead of firms being incentivized to dominate one another and crush each other in the kind of normal business model, they're incentivized to maximize sector-wide returns. So if one loses margin but the other gains, the shareholders are still winning. Everything's a win for them, for these ultra powerful elites that now we know are all demonic pedophiles. And research from major US universities has suggested this structure can lead to, and usually does lead to, higher prices, less competition, wage suppression, and reduced innovation. Exactly, there's a kind of economic factors that are influencing society today. And this isn't because they're all holding secret meetings, although they probably are, involving children and loads of other deviant exploits. But it continues because of these incentives. Because when ownership is consolidated, rivalry softens. Competition, it becomes like a game, a theatre. It's just to pretend. It's all to hide exactly what they're doing, how they're cultivating wealth, no matter what happens in the economy. So this stuff is already really concerning. It's concerning that these extremely wealthy elite shareholders are already holding all of the wealth. But now comes AI, which is going to make things so much worse. So artificial intelligence, it's not just another product, something else for sale. It's a force multiplier. It reduces labour costs. It automates cognitive work, those things that people have been doing for decades, centuries, now AI is capable to do in seconds. It scales production infinitely. It concentrates productivity in capital and not labour. Hence, people are soon going to be losing their jobs, exactly what's happening across the world. And the point is, who owns all of that capital? The same institutional structures that own everything now. So if AI increases profits by replacing workers, those gains are flowing upwards towards those same shareholders that are involved in an international paedophile ring and holding all of the wealth in this kind of two-tiered system. So it usually isn't going to be, and it probably almost definitely isn't going to be, those displaced workers, the ones that are losing their jobs. It's not going to society. It doesn't create this kind of shared wealth. Equally, AI doesn't create inequality. It just kind of amplifies these existing ownership structures. And if those structures are already concentrated, so it's already those people with all the wealth that have it, it just amplifies that wealth that they hold and makes the rest of us even poorer. So it's concentrating everything towards these people that we know are usually the most deviant people on the planet. So the real danger here is that as AI increases productivity, productivity increase profits, profits increase capital concentration, capital concentration then increases political influence. So again, what we saw with the Epstein files is that these people are not just accumulating wealth, they're also manipulating our politics and the way that we live and our democracies. And AI accelerates again. So we're in this kind of feedback loop that's already in motion. So the powerful are going to become more powerful, which means that they can have a bigger influence on our politics, and make that again leads to things like tax breaks and incentives to make them even more powerful. So it's just a vicious cycle of the rich that are already holding so much of the wealth and creating all of this inequality are going to become even more powerful and wealthy at our expense. So what's the alternative? Here's the part that we should be talking about much more than we are. So if AI is built on collective human knowledge, if it's trained on public data, if it relies on public infrastructure, why should the upside flow only to private capital? Why should all the billionaires get all of that money? There is another model and it already exists. So I've got a really good example for you here. It's the Alaska Permanent Fund, and it was created in 1976. So oil revenues were invested into a public fund. So every Alaskan receives an annual dividend. Oil's shared as a resource, and the profits are shared too. So you might ask yourself, is AI less foundational than oil? Surely it's more. So AI is being built on decades of publicly funded research. It's funded by the internet, universities, government grants, taxpayer infrastructure. Yet the equity is going to these billionaires that already hold all the wealth. So that's the imbalance here that I think we should really be addressing and talking about more in society. So just to avoid this private control of equity and capital, to make it more equitably shared between everybody that's already invested in it. We've paid our taxes towards it. We have funded research institutions to pay for it. So surely some of these profits should be going to us as well. So what if we were shareholders? Imagine that different model, that any AI company above a certain size is required to allocate maybe 5% of equity or a portion of AI-driven profits into a national public trust. And that trust distributes annual citizen dividends, it funds public services, or supports training for those people that have become redundant with the rise of artificial intelligence. So you don't abolish capitalism. I'm not saying that. I've not turned into a communist overnight. What I'm saying is that you socialise a fraction of part of it, of part of that AI-driven industry. So call it a citizen AI dividend, call it a technological co-ownership, or just basic fairness. It's not fair that they're getting all the wealth when we've invested in it in the first place. It does one thing, this change in the way that we think about it. It reconnects productivity gains to us, to the public that have paid for it. So the question here is, are governments considering this? Are they thinking about this sort of strategy and way of doing things? Not entirely, but the intellectual groundwork is there. There are serious discussions going on in governments across the world about windfall taxes on AI profits, sovereign tech funds, data dividends, public digital infrastructure, and also antitrust enforcement is resurging in the US and the EU. Actually, Ireland are doing pretty well at sort of centering discussion in this kind of AI arena. So the EU's AI Act, it signals that AI is not just another consumer app, but no major economy has yet mandated public equity participation in AI firms. This is something that we should all be pushing for. Otherwise, we're going to end up in a really dark situation where we have nothing, no option of getting out of that loop that I was talking about, that negative feedback loop. We're stuck in poverty while all those billionaires are feasting, aka Marie Antoinette style. But what I'm saying here is that window's open for us to challenge the way that things are done. So if we don't reshape these ownership structures now, AI is not going to liberate humanity, it's going to consolidate power. And that isn't because the technology in itself is evil, because it's got so much potential to do great things, to fix the environment, to fix all of the issues in society that uphold inequality. So because incentives are structural, the same shareholders who softened competition by putting all of their funds and their shareholder stakes in every company, they're going to quietly own the automation layer of civilization. They're going to own everything. And if productivity rises while wages stagnate, resentment is going to rise faster. So history tells us what happens when economic systems feel rigged. We get really cross, and that's likely to happen. But by that time, it might be too late. So what can be done? There are concrete, achievable reforms that can be made. So number one, we should restrict common ownership across competing firms. That's deeply unfair, and it's creating a society and economy where prices are not going down in the way that they should be. We should, number two, remove voting rights from passive asset managers. We shouldn't give them rights to determine how one company behaves when they're just sitting there as a shareholder raking in the money. Because again, this is causing issues with prices and wages and everything else. Number three, we should mandate public equity stakes in frontier AI companies. We should make our government give us a share, make us shareholders in tech firms, in AI companies. We should create national AI wealth funds that help people retrain from the jobs that they're going to lose. We should expand worker representation on tech boards, so that we have a stake, everybody has a stake, normal people have a stake in the future of our economy, society, civilization. And they're not revolutionary fantasies, these are policy tools. So the question is political will, but we know already how much of that is being manipulated by these elites that are going to benefit from this change in the way things are automated. So we're going to have to fight even harder to get politicians to uphold our democracy and make sure that they safeguard our futures. So this isn't about villains. It's predominantly, in fact, it's entirely about structure. You can admire kind of innovation and technological advances. It's all amazing. It's unbelievable what's happening. You can value markets and a free market and economy, but you still can ask, alongside being a capitalist in support of capitalist markets, you can still ask who is going to own our future. You can do those two things at once, because ownership determines our destiny. So if AI is the most powerful tool humanity's ever built, then humanity, we deserve a stake in that. Not just a subscription, not a job replacement, but a stake, a real stake in our future. So the illusion of competition is fading. We can see that it's all fake. We've been living in a society that has been run by elites and controlled by elites, and it's a masquerade, this competition. It's not real. It's fabrication, just to keep us going to work and earning money for the rich. So the real question is it time to stand up? Are we going to notice in time that this is happening to us and we're going to be stuck in a situation that we can't get out of? So maybe now's the time to think about reaching out to our politicians to help us to get that stake that we deserve, that we've paid for, because it means everything for our future. Okay, that's it for today. So I will see you soon and everything. So links to organisations are in the comments. Hopefully you'll get motivated to make the change. Let's be a collective doing something for our collective future. Bye for now.